We recently took the kids on a family outing to pick local wineberries nearby. They are such a sweet summertime treat and we just enjoy eating them so much. We do enjoy just eating the berries plain, but they are fun to make into something. I believe I've tried jelly in the past. It is super sweet, but we're not a huge jelly family. But one of my favorite things to make is a pie, and a wineberry pie is delicious. I like to make my pie crusts up ahead of time, like in a big batch, and I just freeze them so that I can just pull them out and use them whenever. I'm going to sprinkle some flour on my parchment paper, preparing to roll out the dough. And you can see I keep my flour sort of wrapped up inside the container. I found this kind of keeps the flour fresher, especially if you are in an area that has a lot of like temperature fluctuations or whatever. Like being in the camper, sometimes we have to turn the AC off and on in order to use different appliances depending on our electric hookups. So I'm going to roll the pie crust out nice and thin. My grandmother taught me how to make a thinner pie crust. And then I use the parchment paper to just wrap the dough around the pan and flip it over. And after carefully removing it, it's kind of nice that you have the crust right in the pan. And now comes the fun part with the edges. I don't know how any of you are with edging the pie. I'm definitely not a professional. I feel like every pie that I make looks different, but eventually I guess someday I'll have a nice edge around around my pies. I've seen some beautiful pies. Mine are not there yet, but they sure are delicious. You can see I trimmed off the extra dough. And yes, I do like to take a little snippet of crust here and there, and you can see my daughter is coming out to see if she can have some as well. Yes, I am doing this on my own for now. This was kind of spur of the moment while the kids were resting. So now I'm going to take that extra parchment paper and trim off some excess, and I'm going to lay it back inside of the crust. And what I'm doing here is getting ready to add a type of pie weight into the crust. I pre-bake my crusts, and I found that if I add some sugar, or you could add dried beans in the center of it, if you put that in while it's baking, it keeps the crust from shrinking up. I kind of learned that through trial and error. I couldn't figure out why my crusts were shrinking up, and then I discovered this little trick, and it's been helping me ever since. So now we're going to carry it over to the grill. I've been learning how to bake on a grill and kind of bake in alternative ways, if you could say. And so I've learned how to bake on the grill, and it actually works quite well. While the crust is baking for a few minutes, about 5 minutes really, we're gonna start prepping the berries, and we just need to go through and make sure we get, some of the sticks that might have stuck on there and rinse it all off. There might still be bugs, yuck, but hey, that's part of it when you're picking berries. Now let's add our ingredients. So the first ingredient I'm adding in is some cinnamon. I will have the full recipe in the description of this video. Add in some salt. We use Himalayan, but honestly, whatever salt you use is fine. Just put in, I think it's like a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Of course, we gotta have some light brown sugar. Now, the recipe that I'm gonna put in the description will tell you a certain amount. I usually half it because wineberries are super, super sweet. I use a black raspberry recipe. They aren't quite as sweet. And you don't need to add as much brown sugar or granulated sugar like you see I'm adding here. Use about half of that. And then of course we add a little bit of flour in to help thicken up our pie filling. Some recipes use flour, some recipes use cornstarch. It kind of really depends. I did have a little helper join me to mix up the ingredients. You just kind of gently stir the raspberries with the sugar, flour, cinnamon, salt in it. You want to be gentle so you don't smush them all up. My daughter wanted to go super, super fast, but I had to help her a little bit with that. Now you can see there, this is our finished pie crust. I'm going to remove the pie weight in the center. I normally don't really know what to do with baked sugar, so I get rid of it. If you have any suggestions what to do with sugar that's already been baked, you can certainly comment that below. But we check the bottom, and even though it's not completely done, it's done enough that everything will cook well together or bake well together. After your crust is cooled off, you just add in your berry mixture. Like you see here, I try and strain off some of that extra juice, otherwise it gets super soggy in a way, and sometimes that can take away from the taste of the pie. So adding in all your berries, and then I make a huge batch of pie crumbs. I love crumb pies, so delicious. And I just freeze my extras when I make a big batch, and that way for projects like this, it's super easy to pull them out and just add your pie crumbs on top, and you don't have to do any extra work. You gotta work smarter, not harder, right? Any way you can cut the corners is awesome. And now we're gonna take it back to the grill. I believe the heat I had it on was 350. Normally I would do 375, but we're gonna let it bake and enjoy our pie.